Okay, greetings everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the presentation about the ADK Action Compost for Good Drum Composter grant that is currently open. We put together this presentation to answer any questions and kind of give you an overview of what criteria we're looking for, help you understand not just the grant process itself, but just to make sure that your organization, your business, your municipality, that you're an ideal fit for the drum composter. It's an incredible opportunity, but it definitely isn't for everyone. So I am joined today by ADK Action Executive Director Sawyer. Sawyer, Bailey, or are you going Bailey or Crescent now? Like where are you at?
Bailey.
Okay, soon to change officially, which is super exciting. So Sawyer does need to hop off, but I wanted to give her a couple of minutes to talk about ADK Action a little bit and to kind of kick off the presentation, and then we'll roll through some details on the grant. So over to you, Sawyer.
Thanks, Jen. I'm so excited to be able to share ADK Action's excitement about this opportunity. I think it's such an amazing thing that this project is making possible for our towns, our communities, our businesses, our farms, to just contextualize ADK Action's role with it. As Jen mentioned, my name is Sawyer Bailey. I'm the director of ADK Action. We work across the 12 counties of the Adirondack Park to try to provide leadership on unmet needs. And the way we interpret that is bringing the best solutions to bear across environmentally focused issues and community development work. We have 7 active projects that are trying in all different ways to try to solve practical problems that affect real people and real places every day. We work across helping Adirondackers get support to local food while helping our local farmers. We try very hard across all different strategies to reduce road salt. We improve ecosystems for pollinator species. We provide more equitable access to housing and broadband, and we also try to spark a composting revolution. And the Compost for Good project has been working with us for about 3 years now. This is one of several drum composters that have been gifted to entities across the region. We're very excited to try to support a new community to make this resource available to their community, and also to allow them to be a leader in this movement. There's so much more work to be done. So we're excited to see some new applications this round. Jen, back to you.
Awesome, great, thanks, Sawyer. And yeah, Compost for Good wouldn't be here if it weren't for ADK Action. So we're incredibly grateful to them for their time and support for this project. Sorry, I have a wasp flying by my head. So we were just going to dive in. Before we start with our yak part, and again, I'm also joined by John Culpepper, who is a co-founder of Compost for Good. He is having power surge issues, so he should be able to hop back on, and we'll hear from him in a couple of minutes. But I'm gonna, this is a video that we put together, Compost for Good put together a little bit ago to give kind of an overview about the drum composter. So we'll listen to that for a few minutes, and then we'll go back to the presentation.
Co-founders with our partner Jen and Harry. Compost for Good is a project of ADK Action. We are working towards promoting composting around the Adirondack and beyond.
So what we are interested in as Compost for Good is helping people understand that waste is not really waste. It's just a resource that isn't necessarily being utilized properly. So we are interested in helping people upcycle their food scraps and any other organics that they happen to have available.
We're here today at the North Country School on campus, where we have a community scale composter. This is one of the designs that Compost for Good came up with. There are 3 others in the Adirondack of this design. Today we are going to give you a little virtual tour of how this composter works, and also kind of how it came to be. Tell us about that.
About 6 years ago, we applied for a grant to design and build this composter. Applied through ANCA, the Adirondack North Country Association, and we landed a grant in New York from NYSERDA, that's the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And I said to them through the grant that I think I could design and build a composter, vessel composter, capable of processing up to 50,000 pounds of waste per year, material cost of about $15,000. The goal was to design this thing so that others could build it. So this design exists on our website that we'll share with you at the end of this video. And it's free and available to the world along with an operating manual. And the idea is that others will take this idea, take this design, they'll modify it to meet their needs. And hopefully before too long, we'll have lots of these investments. Compost for Good, we believe that all kind of composting is good. From backyard composting to industrial commercial. The unit behind me is an in-vessel. In-vessel units are really good for community scale because they optimize the environmental conditions for the microbes that do all of the work, that turn the yuckiest food scraps imaginable into what we're going to show you here in just a second. Beautiful black wood. So the pile right here is food waste and a carbon bulk material, carbon source. See sawdust in this thing. This is material that's gone through the drum, and deposited on the end of the drum, and run through a small trommel and put in the. So what's going on in the drum is primary decomposition. And in our case, in the case of North Country School, that primary decomposition takes anywhere from 18 days to a couple of months. And it depends on how much is loaded into the compost each day. So through the drum, primary decomposition, organic matter, stabilized organic matter comes out. We shift that to a trommel, and that's what we are looking at here. So the pile right here is going through secondary decomposition. So there's still food for the microbes in here, for the bacteria and bacteria-like microbes in here. But that food is being consumed. So still a fair bit of heat is being generated here. But the pile will cool down fairly soon, within a week or so. And then the real magic starts. Higher order organisms, fungi and larger microbes take over and take those large organic compounds and break them down into organic acids that are so important in what gives compost its power, its magic, so to speak. So I'd like to start by showing people what we're after here. This is the compost that we're after, and it very much resembles what you would buy commercially in a 40-pound bag at your local garden center.
All right, so now we're in phase 1. We were in phase 2 of the compost facility. Now we're going to talk about how the process works. This is at North Country School in Compost, so normally all of this that I'm about to do is done by young people, by campers or students, but I'm making it a shot today. Right here are our buckets that come down from our dining room and kitchen. All of our community is separating food waste from garbage, and they're going into these buckets. Right now we have pigs, so some of that food is being taken out, but compost comes down here every evening. Campers are bringing food waste down in these buckets. Today we've got, looks like a lot of scrambled eggs and watermelon rind. So we're going to go through, I'll show you the process of how we turn this, get it in there, and make compost. So we start out by weighing our food scraps. We do this for a couple of reasons. One, we want really good data for how much we're adding to the composter every day. The other reason is that we need to know how much carbon bulking material to add to it. So once we get our weight, we record them, and then we do a little math. Right now, with this carbon material that we're using, we're doing a quarter pound to every 1 pound of food waste. This material that we're using is compressed wood pellets, just like you would use to burn in a pellet stove. This works really well for us, but the carbon source that you use at your facility could be we'll shovel it all back into the bucket to be loaded into the composter. Okay, so now we're up at the top of the stairs, looking at the front of the composter. This is the loading end door, or just up from where I was working before. Before we add in our material, we're going to take a temperature. We're actually going to take it 2 different spots so that we get really accurate data. This is good for us to keep an eye on how effective our composting is going. So looking for high temperatures, which lets us know that our microbes are really happy. We're looking at about 130 or so as our target range. We'll give that a second to get up to temperature, and we'll record that every day before we add in our compost material. We record the temperatures, and then we'll add in our compost. Right, so we have a momentary switch here that I'm going to press down. This is so that it's only spinning when there is adult supervising, making sure that there are no children in the way.
Drum is on an angle, so that every time we rotate the drum, the material walks its way downhill. That's how it goes from the loading door in, to discharge in. And it takes anywhere from 18 days to a month or 2, depending upon how much we're putting in there each day. You want to keep the drum 1/2 full all the time, not less than half, more than half. And so the amount of time that it takes for entirely full.
After the material comes out of the discharge end where John just was, we will sift it before it goes into secondary trommel, electric trommel. It spins with the material inside. Finer material will be sifted out here, and larger material will come out the other end. The larger material comes out this end and will go back in, will be chopped up and go back into the composter to do another round of primary decomposition. There, the finer material will be ready to go into the middle bay to enter into secondary. Thank you so much for joining us on this virtual tour. We hope you found it useful and informative.
And if you want to know more about this in-vessel composter design or its operation, you can find that on our website. Additionally, you can find us on Facebook. And if you want to reach out to us, the contact information is on our website. We'd be delighted to talk with you if you're recycling your organic. So thanks very much, and until next time.
Thank you.
All right, great. It sounds like maybe the audio on that was not quite ideal. So just FYI for folks who are listening today and folks who are going to be, sorry about that. Folks who are, sorry, just a sec.
So today,
I can't get to the screen to stop the.
Or in the market garden, because I feel like this concept of
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. That if the for the audio might not have been ideal. So if it was not great for you, we will be sending the slides along with the recording so that you can click on the video to listen to it and watch it. But it's a very good and helpful overview of the entire drum composter system. So I see as I was playing the video, we had a few people join. I'd love to do a round of introductions. So maybe John Culpepper, are you back on? I know you had a glitch power.
I am.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you want to maybe give yourself an introduction and then we'll meet everybody else on the call.
Sure, thanks, Jen. John Culpepper. I am, I've been composting for 50 years, I suppose, and am the primary designer for the compost, the in-vessel 20-foot long in-vessel composter, and a co-founder of Compost for Good, and delighted to be here.
Excellent, thank you. There was an individual who joined who was not there now, but I see Catherine. Are you willing to?
Yep, sure. Hi, I go by Kate actually, but
Okay.
So I have a horse farm, and we are definitely interested in composting our manure. So basically, I just thought I'd check out the drum composter concept, and that's it.
Great. I think I've seen you before.
Yep.
Where are you located? Remind me where that is.
We're on Silver Lake Road, and technically Osceola Forks, but we're closer to Silver Lake.
Oh, yeah, I drive by there all the time. We just had a couple from Silver Lake drop their food scraps off at my composting business like 4 minutes ago. So good for you. It's beautiful out there. So there were just, so for the record, a number of folks who registered for the presentation, knowing they weren't available, that are going to get the recording. So I just want to share that little bit of information. But great. So we're going to dive in. And so we again shared the video. Were you there, Kate, when Sawyer introduced herself from ADK Action?
No, I signed in a little bit late because I was teaching a lesson.
Oh, fun, good for you. Okay, so well, we had Sawyer, who's the executive director from ADK Action, on. So she introduced herself and a little bit about the role of ADK Action. Compost for Good is one of ADK Action's projects. They are what is called our fiscal sponsor. So ADK Action has a number of projects, and we're one of them. We are eternally grateful for their support. We would not be able to operate without them. We are not our own not-for-profit. We are also affiliated with the Adirondack North Country Association, which you saw up there as well. So we're going to dive in. So this presentation is about the grant that's available, but it is very much also about, if you are considering getting a drum composter and other means, it's a really helpful presentation to understand what's involved, and is this a good fit for us? That's the very most important first question that we like to ask. So specific to this opportunity, which is available from the USDA Rural Business Development Program. This is the second year that we've been able to offer through that program. As is shared in the video, through NYSERDA, we have gifted 4 composters that are operating throughout the world in the North Country. And there are also a number of individuals who have built their own, including an individual that John just met with this morning, who has created an entire business out of this design. So it's definitely spreading, and we're really excited about that. But again, it isn't an ideal fit for everybody, but when it fits, it's a dream machine. So this specific opportunity, if you have not gotten the RFP packet yet in some way, shape, or form, please reach out to me. My email will be at the end to get that. The proposal packet is due August 15th by email to myself. We're going to, if we get a number of submissions that we have some follow-up questions, or there's really close, it's between two people, we'll be scheduling interviews the week of August 15th, so August 16th and 17th. And we expect a very rapid turnaround time. We do have an advisory committee. Composter Good is a small part of that, but because we work so closely with so many of you, we are trying to bring in other folks who can help us be as unbiased as possible. We would give a composter to everybody if we could. So the advisory committee will give us their decision by August 18th. So we're gonna roll through some questions and some slides, some information. Talk about, is this the right fit for you? If you're thinking about going to the RFP, what do you need to have in place? And then we're gonna close it out with some question and answers. So, oops, sorry. I hit the wrong button again. Okay, there we go. So the question, the very first threshold question, as with any grant, we, because of the grant content, we are relegated to certain counties, and those are Franklin, Lewis, Jefferson, Essex, Clinton, or St. Lawrence County. So the composter does need to be operating in one of those counties. That's the first threshold. I didn't put this in here, but you can be pretty much any entity. You can be a business, a municipality, a university, a camp, a college. There's really no organizational restrictions on that level, which some grants do have. One of the more and most important threshold questions too is there a single person that's overseeing all of this entire project right from the beginning, from when the application is submitted all the way through to it being operated? This person doesn't have to be the one doing the operating, but they have to be where the buck stops. This is very incredibly important. A lot of these bits of feedback have come from observing other operations and understanding when there's points of failure. These are the reasons why things struggled and fell through a little bit. The third point I think is very important is, let's say that you're proposing this composter and, maybe you work for a college and you're like, yes, this is the best thing ever. And you think it's great, and maybe a couple of your friends think it's great, but if the president of the college isn't bought in, if the student body isn't bought in, then it is an irrelevant process. We really need to know that everybody that is going to be involved in this project in some way, shape, or form, the stakeholders, that they're bought in. And we do ask for a level of support. If this is a more involved proposal, we do ask for support of that buy-in. We do require that you have the ability to pay to deliver the system. We cannot tell you what that amount will be. The latest one that was delivered, I think, was around $1,200. John, does that sound about right? And it went from Composter to the middle of the Adirondacks. So
I'm not sure we got the. Yeah, I'm not sure I got the number on that, but that sounds reasonable. Yeah,
that sounds reasonable. But you, the recipient, would work that detail out with Mud Lake Stalls, which I don't think I've included in here. Mud Lake Stalls is the manufacturer. This is the second one that they will be building. They are an agriculture equipment manufacturer, so that you will have to be able to pay that. We need to know when you're going to be able to receive the composter. So we're going to get into a lot of siting considerations. Those details need to be worked out in advance, and it is okay that it sits at Mud Lake South for a little bit of time while you work out some of these details if you need to, but it really can't be a very long period of time. And wherever that composter gets delivered, maybe it's going someplace where you're not operating it quite yet, but the place where it lands will need to be out of the weather, someplace that if you can't just have it received in your parking lot and it's going to sit there for a month. In an ideal situation, it is delivered and sited exactly where it's going to be operated. So again, these are all things that are important to think through. Will you do this bullet here, the site host tours? The reason that we proposed this round for the giveaway is to set up a site host demonstration site, period. We are trying to spur manufacturing, and that's definitely an important part of it, but the grant requires that whoever gets this composter agrees to host tours. So that's something that Composter does on a regular basis as people are deciding, is this something that I really want to do? Now that we have a network of composters, we can pretty much tie anybody in within an hour of where they live to go see a composter. It doesn't mean we're going to just throw you out in the field and say, good luck. That means that Katie, John, or I, or other Composter Good folks would come to your site, at least in the very beginning, to be part of that tour. But it does mean that you need to be open to having people on your property. Of course, there's insurance and liability issues that go with that. Also incredibly important is, when I say you, it doesn't necessarily need to be the applicant, but it definitely needs to be somebody on your team. One recent recipient had, I think, 3 members of their team go through a compost training course. We are happy to make some connections to you about some of the ones that we recommend. James McSweeney being, in our opinion, the community scale composting guru. Very affordable, remote, that's just one option, but we'll certainly set that up for you. Recipe development, if this doesn't mean anything to you, you do not have to be an expert composter at this point. You don't even have to be any composter at this point. That's fine. We will work with you to develop that knowledge, because that is part of also our goal. So something that you saw John and Katie talk about in the video is recipe development. So it could be that your primary food stock is food scraps. It could be that it's bedding, Kate, for in your situation with the horse manure mixed with bedding pack. It could be animal mortalities. But whatever your primary feedstock is, there are other things that need to go into your composting system to make the magic really happen effectively. And we'll talk about all of that, but we're going to want to know what your plan is for your feedstock. So what's your primary? Another aspect of that you were kidding John talk about is carbon and or bulking. And we're going to want to know what your thoughts are. That it could be sawdust, wood chips, straw, wood pellets. We're going to want to know that you know how you're going to source those things. And I'll say this a bunch of times, we are here to help you with those technical questions. Where is your finished compost going to go? Are you going to use it on site? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to donate it? Those are things that we're going to want to hear about. Also incredibly important, if anybody's ever gotten any grant before, you hopefully know that no grant is just free money. There's always some sort of a buy-in. And same thing with this. This is a great opportunity, but there are a lot of supplemental considerations that you have to be aware of. We're going to go through some of them in the next few slides, but here are some examples. And it could cost, depending on what you've got in place to site the composter, it could be a few $100s to several $1,000s. So that's a really important thing to be aware of. This other next bullet, how and where will you house the composter? Also very important. We're going to talk about siting later. And just because lawyers are involved in grants and the way things go, unfortunately, we do have to ADK action by contract, and there will be a signed contract once this is done. It does require a liability insurance policy naming additionally insured ADK action. And I think the USDA, I can't remember what it specifically reads, but I know sadly one farmer who we would love to consider for this doesn't have that level of insurance, and that is an unfortunate outcome, but it is required by contract. Kate, since it's just you, if there's any questions along the way, feel free to just interrupt me and chime in with the questions. But I definitely
Awesome.
will have at the end. Yeah. Any so far? You with us so far?
I guess I'm sort of just, it's percolating through my brain, and I'm trying to think about, where on my property I could put it, and there's plenty of possibilities. So, but I would have to obviously build a little building for it, but that I could do that. So it's still a possibility.
Okay, and not necessarily, and when we're going right, not with the building, I mean, that's ideal, but it's not necessary. So now that we're into siting, maybe there'll be we can lend some insights into that.
Okay,
so
great.
There's, I do present site preparation in terms of outside, inside, because it does need to be out of the weather in some way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about a couple of options as we go through, and I know John has other thoughts that he can share. But the general outlines are, where is it going to be? When you get it, again, is it going to go in your parking lot and it sits there, or is it going to be put under cover? Even a simple tarping system while you're waiting for the official home is fine, but thinking that through is important. The site should be, just like if you're building any building, it should be level, hard packed, with some sort of gravel, concrete, pavement, etc., capable of handling vehicles, machinery. What your yard, so to speak, compost yard looks like is really important, because you're going to be well traveled, and sometimes with some heavy equipment, so you don't want ruts and muddy and mucky grossness. So thinking not just where that compost is going to sit, but all of the movement that has to happen around it, that footprint is really important. And John, I think you've been asked and answered before, like if you were to assign like a square footage footprint, roughly, do you remember what that was?
Yeah, I like to think of it in terms of things that people can visualize. So if you can visualize, Kate, a 40-foot shipping container, that's essentially 8 foot by 40 feet. And if you imagine 3 of these placed, not necessarily side by side, but the equivalent space of 3 40-foot shipping containers, that's plenty of space for all of the steps necessary to go from really nasty food scraps or manures or whatever to really high quality compost.
And John, do you maybe want to talk about, was that Kate?
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, okay.
Is it Kate or Katie?
Kate, yeah.
Thanks.
we have a Katie. who's unfortunately not here today. John, did you also want to mention we do have a few slides about the shipping container, but did you maybe want to talk about other options for housing?
Yeah, this is an uninsulated composter, and in the middle of the winter, if you're not composting really well, if the if the organisms aren't really happy that are doing the decomposition, and if your temperature drops, that's going to be a real problem. So it's important to have it out of the weather and out of the wind, but that could be in a shipping container, it could be in a 3-sided building, it could be in a greenhouse that you build yourself for $500. It could be a lot of different ways. The one that's operated, the one that I know most about, is the one that's operated at North Country School Camp Treetops. And that one is operated in a building, an enclosed building, but it's an unheated building. The winds don't get in there, and it can reach down to 5 below, I think we've seen inside the building. And that unit there at North Country School Camp Treetops operates just fine in the middle of winter when we hit 30 below.
And we'll drill down on some of those details too, specifically when we get to the inside part of this. But if you remember back to the video as well, with John and Katie, they talked about primary decomposition and secondary decomposition. Primary happening ideally in the drum, and then what comes out it smells beautiful, but it's not finished. It still needs to cook at a different level. And so the important question is, where is that going to go? Where's your secondary decomposition pile going to go? How are you going to get it there? Are you going to put it into a little handheld wagon? Are you going to do a little tractor bucket? I operate a drum composter, and we tumble into our tractor bucket and move it out to piles. So keeping that in mind. Also, where are your feedstock piles going to go? In theory, you're not stockpiling food scraps for 2 months, but you probably could and should stockpile your carbon source. So we always have a pile of wood chips, a pile of straw, bags of wood pellets, and some sawdust, which we don't really use too much because it gets pretty wet, but we always have a pretty good supply of carbon materials stocked. So the question is, where are you going to store that in a place where it doesn't get wet? Having water close is really important because there's a lot of ick. So cleaning your buckets, all your implements, things like that, having water close by is really important. Also, we say watering your secondary decomposition piles. That's getting into the minutia of compost techniques, which we, again, hopefully you will either already know about composting techniques, or you're willing to participate in the class and you'll understand why it is important to monitor the water content of your piles. So that's a general consideration for outside. Inside the gamut is here because it depends on what your system is going to be yourself. Everybody that we know that operates a drum composter has their own unique situation going on. So that's what's great about this. You can customize it to your needs. But you can expect there to be some odor and flies, and if you have a plan to minimize both, that's important. Accompanying this RFP is an operating manual that we put together that outlines most of the details and things for you to consider. So we talk a lot about odor and flies there, but again, we are always available. We would host you if you would like to come visit a variety of drum compost operations. I can share that the composter that we operate, it's a 5-foot composter by 20 feet. Our neighbor was like, I can't sleep at night because the smell is so bad, which happens only when we turn it, to be clear. It's not like that all the time. So my partner built a pretty slick biofilter system that is working beautifully. Now all we smell is cedar and pine chips. So but just be aware, it's not going to smell like roses all the time, but there are certainly ways to address it. Some of these things hopefully will start to become redundant. How are you going to move things? Again, you're going to have a tractor. There are some pretty handy wagons. There are dump trailers that you can buy at Tractor Supply. We have one of those. We've used that before. Maybe you have a tractor with a wagon, a trailer, things like that. But thinking these things through all the way through is really important. If it's going to be inside some sort of a building, ventilation is very, very important. Having that automated would be also helpful. So because there is definitely condensation, and again, we're going to talk about shipping containers in a few minutes, but if you are using a shipping container, it's even more important because in the wintertime, you can imagine all the moisture that is released through the composting process comes up, hits the dew point on the cold material, and down comes the moisture. So ventilation is really important. We walk you through all of those things. We also have accompanying the RFP a general 2 to 3 page citing guidance document that details all of these things as well. We recommend that the exhaust fan be at the loading door end of the composter, again, just thinking about the flow of moisture. We think that, especially if you're in an enclosed building or a shipping container, there's an opportunity for you to bump things along in the wintertime by installing a small heater that will help the microbes keep active and doing their magic. So you've heard us talk a lot about shipping containers. Three of the composters that we gifted, we included a shipping container. This is a previous grant in those grants, and it worked beautifully. The system was designed to fit in a 40-foot high cube container like you're seeing here. This is at the Wild Center, and I should have taken a picture, included a picture of what they did to it because it's brilliant. If you haven't seen it, includes a very long, beautifully locally designed and painted picture of a worm, and it's brilliant. It's very beautiful and aesthetically attractive. So there's really cool things you can do. But looking at this system, we have one at the very end that we can show you on the inside, but there's room on either end for feeding, weighing, tools, and then at the output end. These were designed with a roll-up door on one end, as well as the way that the opening doors came. I have these systems with the roll-up doors were around $6,000. I did price them recently, and with COVID, it's really hard to find shipping containers right now, so I can't really speak to what the status is, but that's certainly something we could help you with. So some things we just talked about there, but you can insulate your shipping container. But again, that importance of ventilation is really, really high. We also really recommend that you get a methane monitor just to be on the safe side, to make sure that you don't walk in one morning and realize, oops, we overloaded with methane, which you should not be producing methane under ideal conditions, but certainly this is a living entity and things go awry every once in a while. If there's any, you might want to check with your building inspector to make sure that there's no issues. From the building inspector perspective, we can talk to you about the DEC does require at certain thresholds for you to become a registered. You wouldn't be probably permitted on this scale. Permitted is a very high volume of processing, but if you're a larger than a very small generator, then you might have to go through some hoops with the DEC, but we'll work with you all of that, and it's not complicated. And again, just the restatement of how important ventilation is. Electrical, 110 volt single phase is usually all that we need. Sometimes different manufacturers have different motor options. There may be an option for DC if you're thinking about solar, 3-phase sometimes, but in this system, it comes with a plug, but hardwiring. Is that still accurate, John?
Yeah, this one is being built with a 110 electrical demand in mind.
Perfect. And you might want to consider that when you do your electric work hookup, you might want to add some other amp services for lighting, if you're going to put that small heater in there, your fan. So just be keeping in mind the entirety of your service, but we believe 100 amp service is usually completely adequate. Safety. You saw what North Country School Camp Treetops did with theirs. It was behind a screen, and you saw Katie use what's called a momentary switch, which means it only operates when you're pushing it, and when you let it go, it stops. It takes about 60 seconds for the composter to do its thing, and that's pretty much it. Depending how often you're loading it is how often you spin it, but making sure that switch, maybe you lock the box. If it's in a compost or in a shipping container, maybe the shipping container's locked, but the pinch points that you saw where the drum, a loaded drum is incredibly heavy. And if anything got caught in those rollers, it would not be a good day. So we just can't say strongly enough about how important it is to be mindful of those opportunities for injury. Allowing plenty of lighting is really important. So again, back to this electrical, you want to, however you plug them in or you hardwire your lighting, but that's really important, especially on inside a shipping container. And non-motor circuits should be about 15 amps. So again, we have a 2 to 3 page document with all of this information in addition to this presentation. Loading, that every person, every entity who's operating a drum composter does this differently. This composter does not come with any sort of a way of a hopper or a funnel into the door. So because North Country School Camp Treetops had educational goals, and because they have a workforce of students, they just what you saw Katie do, that works beautifully for them. They just roll it into their students' chores, the campers' chores. Our composter, I was hand shoveling for about 6 months, and it was horrible. But we're also processing 2 to 3 times what a smaller composter would process. So we actually built a hopper and are able to dump into our hopper. So just be aware that this is a door that is about chest height. So you're going, depending on how high up the composter is being sited, you're going to need to think through that. If you are interested in a hopper, talk to us about that. It does not come with that, but we could certainly figure out if there might be options for a hopper to be added. It would, of course, be at your expense. Camp Treetops, you saw Katie, she was up on a platform. So definitely having some sort of a platform to get up to the level of the door will be helpful. Understanding too that you're going upstairs and you're gonna have buckets, and those buckets are gonna be heavy. So thinking through safety. Really important also when you're thinking about your, this is kind of a sighting point, but you don't have to pre-mix your feedstocks before you load, but it certainly makes the process substantially more effective. So keeping in mind, I can say Lake Placid, they bought a metal feeding trough basically that sits right at the underneath their feeding door, and they dump their stuff, their recipe. They've got a scale, just like what Katie was showing, so they know what their recipe is. It goes into the feeding trough. They chop, they mix with a shovel. Everything gets really beautifully blended, and then into the composter it goes. But thinking through what items do you need to make that process. Another point on safety, that we recommend having signs posted. Again, if it's just you, Kate, and you're a farmer and it's just you and it's fine. That's, it has to meet your needs. That's the most important thing. How are you going to restrict access if it's in a shipping container? Make sure that the wheels and the gears are, nobody goes near there unless somebody's going in to maintain it, which for the record, maintenance on these systems is nominal. If there is an issue, we are available. The Tupper Lake Wild Center had some issues, and we were able to work through them, and they're back online with absolutely no problems. And ventilation, we talked about. Sure that it's not just moisture, but it's also sometimes some of the gases. You don't want to be going in and inhaling any of those gases. So this is kind of additional considerations, but also a reiteration of some key points. If you're a seasonal operator, so let's say you're maybe a residential school, maybe you're a camp, what's your plan when you don't have feedstock available? You certainly can slow down your retention times, have longer retention times. That's one opportunity to speed them up when you start to get more going in, as long as your drum stays half full. Washing containers, we talked a little bit about, but also keeping in mind that, and there's a term for this, and I don't remember what it was, but the stuff that you wash a bucket, and they're going to have food stuff still on to the bucket, and as you dump that bucket, you're going to have water that's got gooey, gunky stuff in it. So capturing that somehow is really helpful, and then running it back into the composter is good. I dump mine onto a pile of either wood chips or straw, and I just put that back into our system. If the person's manually load it, we talked about that. If it's not going to be manually loaded, what equipment are you going to use to do that? Where are you going to store your carbon? We talked about that. Sometimes liquid leaks from the composter. Typically it shouldn't, and that's your composter telling you, hey, we're a little too wet here. You might want to do some adjustments to your recipe. And again, if you take the compost operator course, you'll understand all of those details. But in our system, we have a big pan. Basically, we know where it leaks from, and we just keep a pan down there with a little layer of carbon in it, and it captures the liquid, and we throw it back into the drum. So those are just some other random details. Hey, any other questions? We're getting toward the end, and now it's a little bit more about the actual application process.
No, I think it's really interesting to me. I just might not have the time to deal with this year. I'm curious if you're going to be doing this again next year.
Yeah. Are you on for the whole presentation? And we certainly can talk about that at the end. Are you hopping off?
No, I've got about 10 more minutes. I don't know how long the presentation is going to go.
That's probably just less than that. So
okay, perfect.
I'll be
yep.
happy to address anybody who's listening who isn't maybe going to this proposal but is just interested in a composter. Absolutely, there's definitely lots of other options. So the agreement is outlined here. What we are giving away is a 4-foot by 20-foot drum composter manufactured in Composter by Mud-Lick Stalls. We will oversee the transfer of the ownership through a contract. There we have an operating manual, site visits. When you go to set it up, start it, we will absolutely be there with you through all of it. The last year's recipient, we are doing a substantial amount of support and handholding, and that's totally part of the process. We're here for that. Technical assistance training. Also, again, we would ask you to take a course, but we are here to support you in all of your technical questions. Feedstock management and guidance. Connection to other compost operators is really helpful and important. We would strongly recommend a tour if you're interested, or even if you're just interested, or if you are the recipient. There's several composters within a very short distance here in the North Country that you should and could go take a peek at, and we would accompany you with that. Troubleshooting mechanical issues well into the future. Again, the Wild Center composter had been there for several years, and we came in and supported that repair. And publicity, we all love publicity. On your side is to, again, sign the contract with ADK Action, provide proof of liability insurance, where you're going to need to name additionally insured it would be ADK Action and the USDA, pay for and arrange delivery, site prep, hopefully again this is review, hosting the tours, again that is required as part of this whole entire process, and ensure that you've gotten some degree of training unless you're already very familiar and experienced in composting. And in the contract, we say that you must operate the system for at least 4 years. That's really important. It's not like you get the composter and then you sell it and make money on it next year. It doesn't need to be operated. Now we're done. So this is a composter in a shipping container at Herman DeKalb. They received one, and this is them taking stuff out the end. So you can see that it's just a simple little wagon, and this is a student-operated system, and they are using sawdust from a local Amish sawmill, and that's their composter. So that is the end of the presentation. If anybody who's listening to this in recording land has questions, please reach out by phone, by email. We can set up a meeting anytime. We're happy to answer questions. Kate, to your question, we are waiting on a third grant. This is our second round with RBDG. We're waiting on a third grant, and we did not include this in that proposal, but we do have another system that John has developed that is much more affordable, that is really slick, that I'll invite him to talk about in a couple seconds. But if you're interested in getting a drum composter on other paths, maybe you can find another grant. We certainly could help connect you with what you need to think through. We can connect you. There's a very successful compost manufacturer in Canada, Mud-Lick Stalls now, so we certainly can connect you with people who are building them. But John, I don't know if you want to just brush on the community scale or neighborhood scale system that you developed that might be a better fit for some folks who are interested, but this is just a little bit more than what they might be able to take on.
Sure, happy to. And as Jen said, we're still in development here. We do have, I think, these deployed at 5 different locations in New York State and Vermont. And so far they're working beautifully. But what you're looking at in the picture right now, what the giveaway on this grant is a continuous flow composter, 20 feet long. What we're developing is a batch system that's vertical, not horizontal. It's a fifth of the size of this, although you can gang them together. We've got one facility on Lake Champlain. They have 6 of these going. It requires a little more on your part to maintain it, but not much more, but very significantly less expensive than this system to acquire. And again, it's a DIY kind of system. If you wanted to build your own, we'd be happy to walk you through that.
Perfect. Thanks, Kate. Any other questions in general about composting, about community composting? We also, have you, as a farmer, have you seen our intake form?
I think I might have done it in the past, like in the last year or so. I'm pretty sure we did the intake form.
Okay, I'll go back. Yeah, I know. For sure, I know I've seen you on other presentations. So we do have a service where we do, and I'll go back and look to see if you're in there or not. If not, I'll forward it to you. Where we, for free of charge, and folks listening on the recording as well, that Compost for Good will go to your farm and talk through all of your options. So
great.
And yeah, it's actually really fun. It's fun for us. And one of the helpful things that we do, John, is in a very intensive soil health training course, and he has, actually, we're up to 3 microscopes now. We're going pretty whole hog on this. So we have a variety of tools that we can bring with us as well, a microscope being one of them. We wouldn't bring the microscope, but we would do some, if you're already composting, or maybe you've got some fields that you're curious about the microbial composition of your either compost or soils, that we take those samples and analyze them under a microscope and can tell you, you've got a lot of bacteria, but not much fungal bodies. You've got a lot of fungal activity going on. We're able to tell a whole bunch of things. John is through that microscopy, and his microscope takes videos, and it takes videos and still shots, and we include that in our report to you. It's fascinating. So I'll go back and look to see if you did fill in a form, and if not, I'll send you the link, and we'd love to come out and see you on your farm.
Okay, yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah. Great. Well, any other questions? And you said you had to hop off, but we're happy to.
Yeah, no, I'm just sort of wondering what would be the best fit for us. I mean, we've got a large facility here with right now 18 horses, so it's a lot of manure to handle, and I'm looking for the best ways to handle it. And we have machines to move it around with and all that, and I know like horse manure can be pretty hot, so I'm want to learn about the best options for dealing with it. I think is John, you've already been out here, right, to pick up some of our manure, or is that one of your partners?
No, I have not. Where are you located again? Okay.
We're on Silver Lake Road. And
no, I have not been there. Although I'm getting up in age and I do forget things, but I don't think I've been there. I may have met you, but I don't think I've been to your.
Oh, okay. So Bill Domenico has been here, I think.
Okay. Bill is with the Blue Line Compost. Yep.
Yep. Okay. And so he's come sometimes to get some of our manure. Okay. But which is great. That's fantastic. But so it helps for us to have a way to deal with it. But I don't want to, for example, pollute our stream, because the farm is on a stream. Sure. So I'm concerned about just dealing with the animal waste correctly and safely, so that I'm not damaging the fish population in the stream and stuff like that. So
Absolutely. And Jen will look to make sure to see if you're in our system. If not, we'll get you in our system, and we can absolutely help you, walk you through all of the options that you have available to you.
Great.
And pick one that really makes good sense for you, your personnel, your equipment, your land. Happy to do that. We do that for lots of farmers.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, and I am technically the grant writer project manager for Compost for Good. And one of the other things, as you're talking, my brain is already racing. We bring grants to your attention and can support you as other funding sources. So this is also something that, yeah.
Great,
Well,
fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, feel free to jump off, but I do have a comment. You're welcome to stay with us or hop off. But my comment, Jen, is to anyone who is listening to the recording. A lot of information that you went through. I would strongly encourage anyone who really is thinking about applying to have a one-on-one conversation with us to make sure you fully understand the pros and cons of this type of composting system, and that you've got the capacity to actually accept one and successfully operate it.
All right. Any other closing words, John? Otherwise, we'll say thanks to everybody and look forward to your proposal.
Not for me.
Awesome. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Bye.